Good morning, everybody. So, you have your mornings all planned, ready to go. This morning at like 8:30, I set my computer to upgrade and it just came back online 5 minutes ago and doesn't seem, of course, Facebook is all different. So hopefully you can all see me. Please send me some likes or some haze and let me know this is working and you can all see me. So now that that lovely stressful thing, and at least it came back online before the live started, we are going to have a lovely live this morning. How is everybody's Friday morning going? Hopefully you're looking forward to a lovely weekend. Okay, so thank you so much for joining me this morning. I have a great live for you. For those who don't know me, my name is Paula Hoger. I've been a dog trainer operating in the Ottawa Valley for the last 25 years. My whole goal is to help people train their dogs, to give them useful information that they can take action on and get the results they're looking for, which is better trained dog. Good morning, Patty. Happy Friday to you. Um, Not just to sit on cue, which funny enough is what our live is today, but to have a dog that is great, that everyone wants to own. That dog where if you needed a home for your dog, God forbid, there would be a lineup of people saying, no problem, I will take your dog. Not now, for sure, temperament of the dog has a lot to do with it. Some dogs are easier to train, some dogs are harder. I know people who've gotten dogs and it just worked. No real effort. They have pretty well behaved dogs who are pretty good and fit in their family really well. But that is not the average dog, or at least not the average dog that I see. But of course, since I'm a dog trainer, I see people who's they're having issues. The average dog needs to be trained, especially if you want that dog that can go anywhere and do everything with you, or compete at a dog sport, or do therapy work, or just be your best friend to you and your family. This is my goal to help you train your dog. Good morning, Debbie from Western Massachusetts. Karen, good. Thank you so much for letting me know you can see and hear me. It always makes me laugh how Facebook likes to change stuff around. And I'm like, is this working? From San Antonio, is it warm in San Antonio? Good morning, Susan. Hi, Carol. Um, Heather, thank you for appreciating my organizing dilemmas. Good morning, Teresa from Naples. I love Florida. And good morning, Julie. How is Sisu this morning? Um, for those of you on the call, thank you so much for saying hello. What is the dream thing you would like your dog to do? Think big here. What is your dream thing that you're like, I would be amazed if my dog could do that? Is it ignore the squirrel? Is it great door manners? Walk well on leash? Be crazy. What? These are dream goals. And dream goals are something, they're at the farthest reaches of your imagination. This is all doable. As long as it's physically possible for your dog, you would be amazed what you can train. And that's what I want to help you with. So message me if you want more information on working with me and helping you achieve these dream goals. While we give people a couple of minutes to join us, I'm going to talk about something that resonated with me this week. As most of you know, I have an 8-month-old border collie named Wicca. She is sweet as pie and sometimes is called badness for a reason. So without a doubt, every dog is different, but they all go through huge changes in adolescence. Anybody anybody who's had teenage children understands that everything's different, but it's a traumatic time for the child and the parents usually. So this is the age where a number of dogs get given up. If you go to the Humane Society or into rescues, 7 to 9 months is a large percentage of dogs that get given up. And this is also the age where a lot of people come to me for training because all of a sudden their adorable little puppy is not adorable little puppy anymore. Ideally, you've been training your dog since was a puppy and you have some tools, but don't despair. Even if you have an adolescent dog with no training, there's still a lot you can do to make this age less aggravating for you and your dog. First thing is have a sense of humor. Your dog is going to do silly things. Your dog is going to bark at a paper bag on the street that he's walked by 3 times. This is the age when a lot of the drives kick in. So if you've got a herding dog, this is where they'll start to get really herdy. If you've got a guardy dog, this is usually the age where they start to get very spooky and guardy. Your dog may become super barky. Your dog may start guarding everything and anything. Your dog may become fearful. Your Wicca has definitely dabbled in all of these. She barks. She is not noise sensitive, but noise aware. And she's at this age, we call it a fear period. And fear periods can last for a few weeks or longer. And my last two border collies, I swear their fear period lasted about a year. And in that fear period, stuff that was perfectly normal 6 months ago when she was a baby now is spooky. Like she'll hear the neighbor's dog bark and bark. She's been listening to that dog bark since she came home at 8 weeks old. Has never barked before, but now she feels she should bark. And she barks a couple of times and kind of looks at you like, what is that? And then you're like, yeah, it's fine. And then she's like, oh, okay. So yeah, that's the biggest thing to remember is not to panic. Try not to big picture it, like saying my dog is bad or my dog is just barky or guardy. Try to look at each situation individually, and then it's so much easier to create a plan to fix it. Nothing becomes a habit by being practiced once or twice. So the first goal is always stop it from happening. Behaviors become habits when they get practiced over and over. And that's what your goal is. Not to flip out, but just prevent that over and over. For example, your dog is sitting on the couch. You walk towards the couch to sit down and your dog growls. 7 to 9 months, some are older, some are younger, but 7 to 9 months is the age where they start pulling this. Depending on my history with the dog is what I'm going to do at the moment. So I'm not going to talk about that. But here are the skills I would work on if my dog did that. Collar grab game. I want the dog totally comfortable being approached and having his collar grabbed, because if your dog is comfortable being approached, he's not going to guard the furniture. Recall. While you're working on teaching your dog not to guard the furniture, I want to be able to walk into a room and call him off the couch so he doesn't get to practice guarding. Remember, practicing the behavior is what cements it in. I had a Siberian Husky that I got at 6 months old who totally guarded furniture. And just you walk into the room, you said, get off the couch. He'd get off, you'd get on, he'd get back on. It was all good. But if you tried to go towards him when he was on the couch, he would definitely growl. He did outgrow that. But for 6 months to a year, we did that. You get off the couch and then I sit down. Guarding games. This is where I build value for people approaching when they are on the couch. I have a lot of guarding games I play without even thinking about it with puppies to prevent this happening as they hit adolescence. Always remember, your dog is not being bad. Your dog is just trying stuff out and seeing how it works. You want to explain what will work and what won't. What types of situations that come up for you and your adolescent dog? I'd love to hear from you. If you need help getting through adolescence, message me about setting up a consult. Okay, lots of people have commented, so I'm going to go back. These are your dream goals. Good manners overall. That's a great goal, Patty. And I want you, you don't have to share it, but I want you to write down what those manners are. Whenever we think big pictures, good manners overall, that doesn't give you actionable stuff to work on. I want my dog to sit when they approach people. Okay, now I have something actionable I can work on, something I can reinforce so that my dog will get there. So you need to make sure you've written down or at least thought real hard about what good manners overall mean. And this is not always a black and white answer because, for example, the lovely Miss Wicca. I got her and I went, I'm not going to let you jump. I'm going to teach you not to jump. I'm going to work on this. And I did for the first month. And then I got over it. Now she jumps. Meh. 95% of the people she interacts with on a daily basis, my husband, my child, my friends, my dog training clients, not only reward the jumping by interacting with her, but they also like it. She's a little dog, so it's not painful. She's not power jumping. So I'm like, okay, I can't be bothered. I could have managed it. I could have totally changed it. I just couldn't be bothered to make that much effort for that behavior. So this is where good manners becomes really gray. What you can't do is someone sometimes say it's okay and sometimes say it's not. Jumping is a common problem I hear about, but then I'm working with the people and their dog jumps on them and they pet them. You can't have it both ways, people. Your dog jumps and is loud, or your dog doesn't jump. Recall off the squirrel, Susan. ODR game. I've done piles of stuff on ODR. Hopefully you've heard it. There's going to be a link in the show notes to our ODR flow chart to help you keep it all straight in your head. But definitely the first step of a recall off a squirrel is ODR. I have a border collie and he gets Marie, sorry. I have a border collie and he gets overly excited and whiny when people come over. So I would do ODR game out in public and see if he can handle people out there, because that'll be easier. When people come over to your house, I would suggest put him in a crate and not let him out till he's calm. If he's a baby, you're probably going to change this. If he's an adult, this is one of those, is it worth the effort to change? And I'm not saying it is or it isn't. That's only up to you. Jumping on us and all you mentioned. We have a 1.5-year-old border collie Jack Russell mix. Jumping is a reinforced behavior. Some dogs naturally jump. Wicca came all about up. She jumps on counters, on crates, and has since she was 8 weeks old. But she, funny enough, doesn't really jump on me because I don't reinforce it. I just do it naturally. What that means is if your dog jumps on you and you talk to them, touch them, interact with them, even glare at them, you are reinforcing it. So if the minute your dog's paws leave the ground, you turn around and walk away, I guarantee you in 2 weeks, you will have a drastic reduction in jumping. With other people, it's a totally, you have to manage it. So that becomes a little more challenging. Carly, incessant whining when he wants something and he can't have it. ODR game, Carly. It's all about ODR game. Go check out ODR game. I'll talk about it a little bit today. My dog is 11 years old, and this is not a manners issue. She has become extremely fearful of noise, especially while in the car. We travel frequently 2-hour trips. She has traveled with us since we got her at approximately a year. Jan, I would suggest at 11 years old, take her to a chiropractor. She may be losing her hearing, and so noises are going to sound different, but she may be able to be helped by a chiropractor. Also make sure she's gone to a vet and the vet has cleared her and said there's nothing wrong, done old age blood work, which is called something else that isn't coming to me at the moment. But I would check her, I would take her to a chiropractor, and it may just be she's losing her hearing and noises sound funny as she loses her hearing. The good news at 11, she'll probably completely lose her hearing soon, and then this issue will be done, unfortunately, but excuse me, that's the way it is. Okay, so back to the topic for today. Today's topic is called No Sit to Holy Sit. I've been working on creating an online course. My goal for this course is to provide the average dog owner with the tools to be an incredible dog trainer. You can all do it. I have spent the last few months working on what this looks like. Thank you, Jennifer, geriatric panel. That's the blood work you need to get done, Jan. I spent the last few months working on what this looks like, watching my students, their challenges and their successes, and taking influence from incredible dog trainers that I am lucky enough to have in my inner circle and watch on a regular basis. I'm constantly striving to find the missing pieces that truly differentiates the average dog owner from high-level dog trainers that seem capable of creating magic with their dogs. I remember my first dog. I read all the books. I took piles of classes. But my dog was still not acting how I wanted him to act. So how did I want him to act? And I have this problem with my students. What do you want to train? What do you want to work on? What problems are you having? And the answer to this is, I don't know, but I want something, because they keep coming back and going, I want to train. But when I ask them specifically what they want to train, they don't know. And this is, again, we look at big pictures, and to train, we need to look at little pictures, little specific things specific things we want to work on, because we can't train big picture, but we can train specific things. And that's why I started with the sit, because when I see the average owner teach a sit and when I see a higher level trainer teach a sit, it doesn't look anything alike. So start looking at specifics. For example, how do you want your dog to act when you get out of the car? Answer, I want him to stand there quietly while I lock the door and put my keys in my pocket. Sound good to everybody? And how do you get that? You know what I'm going to say. ODR game. Observe, don't react. This teaches your dog to be calm and wait. If you get out of the car and right away let them go to wherever they're going. Let's say you get to your friend's house and the dog gets out of the car and drags you to the door on leash. You're teaching them, get out of the car, driving towards something. But if you get out of the car, stand there quietly, play ODR game, when your dog settles down and can give you his attention, then you're like, okay, let's go. You're reinforcing that calm behavior. Okay, let me mark where I'm at, and I want to answer that comment. Okay, Debbie, as I'm watching this, the trash truck just came and both my girls never made a sound at them. ODR for the win. One non-reaction at a time is a win. Debbie, thank you so much. That was a great comment. And that's exactly how you have to look at dog training. Pick one little thing, work on it, then move on to the next little thing and the next little thing. And all of a sudden you have a bunch of things and your neighbors are going, wow, your dog's so well behaved. Okay. So every year my dog got better. This was my Akita Yukon. And by this time now, I was a dog trainer because we're a number of years down the road. And my dog was good enough now that my students were impressed. They were like, wow, your dog's really well behaved, which is lovely to hear. My dog could sit quietly in his crate while I taught classes and come out and do demos. But I knew there was more. Again, like above, I wasn't sure what that more was that I wanted, but I knew it was there. Some big goals for me were let my dog off leash anywhere and know he wouldn't run away. It took us a lot of years to get there. There was a lot of problem solving. And looking back, I see what the mistakes, because, you know, a lot of what I've learned comes from the mistakes I've made. The stuff I went, let's see if this works. And then went, oh no, that didn't work. Let's try something else. Guys, if you look at the top of the comments, there's a pinned comment on a preview video on the first lesson for No Sit to Holy Sit. Okay, so the next goal I had is I wanted to be able to calm off a toy. I saw people do it in agility. They would send their dogs over a jump, and if their dog went to get the toy and they weren't supposed to, they'd be like, hey, don't do that. And the dog would be like, sure, no problem. Where my dog, I'd scream and yell, and my dog would be like, screw you, I'm getting the toy. So I wanted that. So I started looking at stuff and picking little behaviors that I wanted and then figuring out what I had to do to get to those behaviors. It still seemed, overall, it seemed like I was battling with my dog, holding on for dear life. I was still micromanaging and not trusting my dog, not trusting my dog to do the job independently. I had no faith. When I watch people I consider amazing dog trainers, they seem so calm. They seem so trusting of their dogs. They have faith. It looks so easy for them. They don't look worried. They have faith their dog would behave. I wanted the ability to let my dogs go and know they would stick around. I watched other people. I admired their dogs. How do I get it? How did they do it? What was the secret? What was I missing? 25 years later, I'm ready to share what I figured out in this online course. Of course, understanding that there is no such thing as done learning. All my games are in a constant state of flux as I figure out more bits. I look back at my notes from 6 months ago, and the ODR game has developed since then. Everything is constantly changing, and that's the fun part about dog training. Are my dogs perfect? Far from it. There is lists. I could make a book of stuff that I'd like that to be better, and I'd like that to be better, and I'd like you to learn to do this. Now I have an 8-month-old puppy. It's 3 books. But they still do stuff that blows my mind, that still goes, wow, you can do that? Because I still remember that very first dog, that walking down the street and him not lunging at people and dogs in a I love you all and want to visit was the hardest thing in the world. So, um, if I was me, if I had to say something to me from 25 years ago, I would be amazed. I want you to have that amazing feeling. I want you to be that, wow, my dog can do that person. And I want to teach you how to get there. Um, okay, so are you ready to do this with your dog? Let's get started. Anyone who has been listening to me this past year knows everything I do starts with ODR game. The ODR game stands for Observe, Don't React. Check out the show notes. Like I said earlier, the flow chart for the ODR game will be somewhere in the notes. I cannot say this enough. Everything starts with ODR. If you start everything you do with ODR game, all your training will, by default, be better. Your dog will learn that this is the only start you interact with. It will become a habit. From when my puppy was 8 weeks old, if she was not calm, focused on me, we didn't go to the next step. So now she is calm and focused on me. And anybody who's met her knows how hard this is for her. A habit for focus, connection, and togetherness, no matter the distractions and difficulties you face. It also makes you much more aware of and accepting of what your dog can handle and what your dog can't. Don't put your dogs in situations that they can't do it. Like your dog is chasing a squirrel and you're calling them. You know that's not going to work, but we can't help it. I've been there, done that. I understand. But that's teaching your dog when you're chasing a squirrel and I call you, ignore me completely. Not a behavior you want to stick. The ODR game is teaching your dog to be calm in all situations. Therefore, if you start everything with the ODR game, that means everything you do and everywhere you go starts with calm. While we all may have slightly different definitions of calm, I'll share with you what mine is. To me, calm is 4 paws on the ground, quiet, and not demanding food or attention or nagging me. That means poking me, pawing me, barking at me, all those things, those demand behaviors, none of those. Even if I don't have a leash on, every single training session starts by playing ODR game. This is a dog quietly in front of me waiting to play. That is a dog that is focused on me. I know some of you are saying that will never happen with my dog, but let me challenge you. Anyone watching live with a dog, call them in quick and grab a cookie. So I'll let you do that. Call your dogs, grab a cookie. Let your dog see you grab a cookie. If you have multiple dogs, put one away. Put everyone away except one, because if you can try this with 4 dogs or 3 dogs or 2 dogs, but it becomes much more of a challenge. Hold your hands together in front of you, so on your waist. What is your dog doing? Is your dog jumping? Is your dog running around like his tail's on fire? Is your dog barking? Just wait. Don't say anything. Don't do anything. Just wait. I promise you, eventually your dog will get to calm. You have to give him a moment. Sometimes a few moments, especially with some dogs, but that's okay. It's like crate training. At first it takes a long time, and then it gets quicker and quicker and quicker till finally you put your dog in a crate and he's calm. So this depends on the habits you have built around food and how much your dog has learned how to calm himself down. So somebody said their dog was, Carly, you mentioned the whining. This would be a great game to play with him, because he's going to whine and whine and whine and whine, and eventually he's going to stop, because the dog can only whine for so long if you're not feeding into it. But if you're like, quiet, don't do that, quiet, stop, talking to him, touching him, we feed into that energy. Now, what if you have a dog that doesn't care and just walks away from you, or never gets calm and goes from jumping to disengaging completely? For these dogs, you may need to start in a super boring environment, like a bathroom where I have picked up the mats, possibly put the toilet paper away. So there's nothing exciting in this bathroom, because some dogs are going to walk away from you and go pick up your shoe. Well, you're not going to pay attention to me. You are now. And you don't want to create, okay, disengage from me and then find something to do that will make me react. So for those dogs, you want to go somewhere super boring, super not rewarding, so that Eventually they're like, okay, fine, I'll look at you. And then you can reward that. Okay, so that's the first step. So now your dog is in front of you waiting, and the barking and jumping, all that is over. Now, what I see next is most humans will want to reward that lovely, calm behavior. And this is one of those bits. This is one of those bits that people are missing. Do not reward with a cookie. If you do, you will be reinforcing calm, which we like. But the problem is the day you stop rewarding calm, the dog will start. All those obnoxious behaviors may be frustration because they're like, I sit in front of you, you give me a cookie. A few months down the road, I sit in front of you, you're not giving me a cookie. Hey, do you see me down here? Why aren't you giving me a cookie? Here, let me paw you. And then you're like, oh, maybe I should give you a cookie, and you feed that. And then they're like, whoa, hello, I need cookies. Now, every time you stand in front of your dog's demanding food. So you do not reward that. Calm is a great place to start, but you're going to reinforce it by interaction, not by a cookie. You're going to give them the opportunity to work. Working with you is a huge reward. Your attention is a huge reward. Most dogs are dying for you to give them attention. So you want to make sure it's in a positive way that builds behaviors you want, not in a way that builds behaviors you don't want. A general rule, and again, this changes for situations and dogs, but a general rule is do not reward anything unless you have asked for it. Now, sometimes contextual cues ask for it. Like if I'm sitting on a chair watching my son's soccer game and my dog's lying beside me, I will reward that. Because contextually, if I'm sitting in a chair and you're on leash, lying beside me is something I want to promote and I want to create. So I will reward that. Those are called contextual cues. Possibly the subject of a whole new life. Okay, so now since we're talking about the sit in this live, you're going to cue the sit. So you see all the steps we've gotten before we ever get to actually cueing sit. Take your hand down by your hip. So this hand down at your hip, and fold your arm all the way to your shoulder. So I'll show you again. Hand down at hip, fold your elbow, and bring it to your shoulder. So now this is a nice big hand signal. As your dog's head looks up and back, your dog's butt will hit the ground. Now, some of you may already have this and your dog's amazing. No problem. Give me a minute. We'll get to the next step. So as soon as your dog's butt hits the ground, and a lot of dogs have a sit cue, but I warn you, is the sit cue because of the food or because of the cue? And this is another bit you got to think about. So when your dog is calm, he's already sitting, I will back up so he stands and then give the sit cue. I won't reward just sitting in front of me. Remember that. You don't reward that unless you ask for it. So if your dog is already sitting, you're going to back up and re-cue the sit. He's going to sit because he's really good at that already. And then you're going to give multiple rewards. Here's another bit. When you reward, let's talk about multiple rewards first. This is why I have notes, otherwise I miss stuff. I never, ever train my dog, sit, here's a cookie, walk away. My sit from the day they are 8 weeks old and I do my very first sit, it is always multiple rewards and then a release cue such as okay, and then I move. So the reason for this is sit, here's a cookie, walk away is only good to give them a cookie. You want to create a usable sit has a stay component. So that means a usable sit is, I break a glass in my kitchen. I tell my dog, I would probably say down, but we're working on sit. So we'll say sit for this example. I would tell my dog sit while I got the broom, cleaned up the glass, the whole bit. Sit, here's a cookie is only good for that. Sit, here's a cookie, walk away. Because if you don't give them a cookie, I think somebody said once the average wait time is about 7 seconds. If they don't get a cookie within 7 seconds, the dog's like, oh, I'm not getting a cookie, and they walk away because that's the behavior we've taught. So again, only useful for giving them a cookie. So you give the sit cue, and right away you reward, multiple rewards, and then you say your release cue, mine is break, but you could say okay, and then take a step back and you reward that. So there's a whole bunch of steps there we're going to talk about. Back to my notes. Okay, so the first thing is how you reward. Most people reward, so their food is, imagine, let's see if I can move this a little bit. Okay, the food is on their body and they're feeding their dog like this. The problem is we're teaching the dog that sit is attached to your front. I want the sit to eventually be you're running after a squirrel and I say sit and your dog can sit. So the sit can have nothing to do with your body. To achieve that, you need to feed off your body and feed the dog. So instead of the dog coming to here, when the dog sits, I move forward and feed the dog. The other thing, back to the sit cue, when you give the sit cue, make sure you're not leaning forward to give the sit cue. You should stand up straight. And sometimes with some dogs, I actually lean back when I give the sit cue. You don't want your social pressure to be asking your dog to sit, because that means the day you're not standing in front of them, they can't sit. You want to make sure it's just this. And once you have it standing up, another step you can do is sit in a chair and give the sit cue. Does your dog sit, or is he like, I don't know what you're talking about? So we'll talk about proofing in a minute. Okay, so now you're going to deliver the rewards. How I do this is I have a pile of food in one hand. I cue the sit with the other hand. My dog sits, and then you deliver the rewards one at a time. At first, my full of food hand is really close to my dog's face, and I'm going treat, 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 especially with puppies or really fast moving dogs like Jack Russells. As my dog gets this idea, I start to move my food filled hand further away. So now I'm rewarding, my hand leaves. My dog is choosing to stay till I deliver the food again. And I do this multiple times, and my dog gets I have to sit here for a duration of time. Now that duration at first is like a second, but that time gets bigger and bigger as I stand up, especially with a little dog, as I stand up or move slightly further away. So they're choosing to stay sitting as I deliver the reward. Make sure when you reward, your dog is not, so this is the dog's head, this is the reward. If you stop here and the dog does this, technically he's coming out of the sit, because that means if you stopped here, your dog will now move further, which means he's out of the sit. Instead, this is the dog's head, this is the cookie, this is how I reward the dog. In their mouths. Yes, your hand may get goobery. The more you do this, the less you have to put it in their mouths. But I want you to do this. So now you see this is the dog's body. The dog's body's not moving. If you do this, the dog's body's moving. If you do this, the dog's body's not moving. Creating the understanding of keeping your butt on the ground is what I'm looking for. I have a lot of clients who come to me, they say sit, and then they feed here and the dog gets up. So sit means wait for the hand and then go to get it. If you have dogs who jump up for food, to solve that, what I just said, make sure you're delivering the food to the dog instead of having the dog reach for the food. All right, let me find my place and make sure I haven't missed anything. Like I said earlier, I have posted the first video of my No Sit to Holy Sit course in the show notes, showing you everything I'm talking about during this live, because I understand that it's a little hard to visualize what I'm talking about. When you're rewarding, and honestly, I cannot tell you how important it is to video yourself when you're training, because you will see so much. When you're rewarding, what I'm looking for is no paw movement, no bum movement. If you're getting this, then I'm going to bring my delivery hand closer till I eliminate this. These are the front paws. And they start to understand how to stay solid. There's a whole bunch of games that I'll have. Some dogs are very, very light on their feet and have a really hard time with not moving their front paws. And there's a whole bunch of games I'll have in the course to help your dog understand how to do this. Because if they're moving their front feet, they will start creeping. So this leads to this. But if they can be solid, they're thinking about their feet, and that will stop this, which is the first step to leaving the stay. Okay. So back to the stay concept. Once your dog is sitting, you want to deliver multiple rewards to start to create the concept of stay. We make it really easy, sit, and the stationary cue always has a stay attached to it. So let me say that. I don't say stay. When I say sit, it always means stay because I've been teaching it that way since they were the very first time. If you want to say stay, please go right ahead. Doesn't bother me at all. Your dog, an extra cue is not going to hurt. But I see a lot of people say, oh, my dog didn't stay because I didn't say stay. And then they say stay. Rarely does that make a huge difference for the dog. I find it's rewardment history. Too many sit one cookies as opposed to sit multiple rewards. Okay. So as I explained, cookies in one hand, you're delivering out of the other hand, because if you have it all in one hand and you give them the reward and then pull this hand back, you're leaving with a handful of food and the dog is much more likely to come with it. Where if you deliver the reward and step back or move your hand back with this hand's empty, and it's much easier for the dog. Releases. Let's talk about releases. Okay, so releases. I use the word break. In agility, we've all switched to break because you would set your dog up at a line in a seminar or a class, and your instructor would give you some last minute reminders, and you would say okay to the instructor, and the dogs would move. So years ago, somebody decided, let's use break, and now everybody's uses break. It doesn't matter. I have a friend who uses let's go. The word is irrelevant. The consistency is important. So the release defines for the dog when it is okay to move and when they should stay. Most people's stay issues are a release problem, not a stay problem. For example, you tell your dog to sit when you put on his leash, and you clip on his leash, and then you stand up and walk out the door. What exactly told the dog to move? The clipping the leash on, you straightening up, you walking away. Let's say for your dog, the release is you standing up. You standing up becomes, this is when I move. Because you had to have the duration, and you probably waited for the duration to clip the leash on, but somewhere in there, something there is going to be a release. Go back to the glass breaking in the kitchen example. You bend over to get a piece of glass, you stand up, and your dog moves. Well, he's like, no, when you stand up, I move. We do this every day, multiple times a day. Does this make sense? The problem here is not the stay. The problem here is the confusion on what the release is. If I give the sit cue, I have to make sure I release the dog for the dog to understand how long they're supposed to stay. So at the beginning, once I've delivered multiple rewards, I give my stay cue standing still, break, and then I take a step back and reward. And you'll see that on the video. This clarifies to the dog to move on the word and not your body motion, which will be important when you start to move away from your dog and add motion to your distractions, to your proofing. Most dogs will follow us if we're holding a bunch of cookies. So at this stage of the game, before giving the release cue, I give the release cue and then I move, because I've already hopefully taught my dog using name game that when I back up, you come with me. Like any other cue, I reward the release because it is a cue. It tells my dog, you're free to move. I reward it because I want to build value for it. As you'll see in the video, I say Wicca's not always quite ready to break and move on her own. My goal is I can stand perfectly still, say break, and my dog gets up and moves, because that tells me they have complete understanding of the release. Something I want to mention Oh, Jennifer, that is a great question. Have been trying to have my husband use my release cue instead of his. Your dog can have two release cues. You can have multiple cues for any behavior. You cannot have one cue mean multiple behaviors. Does that make sense? So if your husband has release cues that are different than yours, that's fine. Your dog will work for his and for yours. Um, Interesting enough, in formal settings such as agility, my dog's release cue is break, and they are 100% good on it. In informal settings like walking, so they come in, I call them, they come in, and then I release them to go. Because I'm not paying as much attention, I say okay, because I used okay for 10 years before I switched to break. And my dog's release cue is okay instead of break. But if I say okay in agility, they don't move. So your dogs will contextually understand different releases. Yours are whatever, and your husband's are something else. That's perfectly fine. And you can even proof your husband's release cues so they are not yours. So they understand if you say banana, if your husband uses banana and you say banana, that doesn't mean move. You can teach them that. All this stuff you teach them makes their brain hurt at first, but it's using their brain and they love to use their brain. Sometimes we're scared to give them hard questions. Last night in agility, I was working this whole week with my beginner students. I'm working hand touches, and now the dog has to sit. And you offer your hand. Where's my hand? There. You offer your hand, and they're not allowed to move until you release them to your hand. So you've just done a bunch of hand touches. Your dog's like, you move the hand, I touch it. You move the hand, I touch it. You move the hand, I touch it. For what I mean is the dog's nose touches your hand, for those who don't understand what I mean. So then you ask them to sit, and the sit supersedes the hand touch, meaning this is not a cue to touch if you're in a sit. So at first you offer the hand, the dog's like, what if I move? You move the hand away. You offer the hand, what if I move? You move the hand away. You offer the hand, what if I move? And they're like, okay, now you offer the hand. They're like, what if I don't move? And now you give your release to touch the hand. And they're like, oh, so I sit. When you offer the hand, I do not move until you release. And these questions help them to understand. No, when you're in a sit, everything else is unavailable. Or, and there's, yeah, no, when you're in a sit pretty well until I release you, nothing is available. Whether that means my hand, whether that means the jump in front of you in agility, whether that means the other dog running out the door, none of those are available. You can run out the door behind the other dog if you're not in a sit, but if you're in a sit, you can't. Making them think through these things is how you get your dog to understand what stay means. And I still have to talk about proofing, which is how we teach this. Something I want to mention before I wrap up. I have a number of clients that are in a real hurry to get rid of treats. And then I have clients who feel their dog will not listen without treats and are scared to do anything without treats. I use treats throughout the life of the dog. I also use many other rewards to reinforce my dog. My dogs do not perform because of treats, though no doubt the reward history is what originally taught them to perform. Let me say this in a different way. I do use food to create a behavior. I use food to reward a behavior. But once the behavior is taught, I do not use food to get the behavior. We teach dogs for you to be clear that your dog gets the behavior, I do what's called proofing. Proofing is asking your dog questions and clarifying what he does understand and what he doesn't, like the hand. In every level of the course, there's what I call challenge ladders. The challenge ladders will be appropriate questions for your dog at that level. So that you ask them at each step. For the sit, the first question for the dog is, if I slow down the reinforcement, can you stay sitting? So at first you're like, you give the sit cue, treat, treat, treat. Okay, you back up and reward. So now you're done this a couple of times. Your dog's like, got it. This is fun. You give the sit cue. You go treat, treat, treat. Okay, release. You don't have to do 3. It could be 2. It could be 4. It could be 5. So now my dog stayed waiting for an extra few seconds. So that is him starting to understand the stay. And that is my first question. If the dog were to move, so I waited too long and the dog goes, what if I get up? I'll give him the sit cue. My hand comes up. He will sit again. And I won't reward because that would be rewarding the correction, which was the sit cue. And I'll pause and give him a second. If he stays sitting, then I'll reward. And I might do a couple of easy ones after a correction, and then I'll go back to waiting and go, do you get it now? Till I can reward. You want to keep your rate of reinforcement. That means about 8 out of every 10 questions you ask, he's got to get right. So that, and this is an overall average, that way you maintain confidence and drive. If you start pushing so hard that he's failing 8 out of 10, then he's going to quickly go, you know what, this is really hard. I don't know what you want. I'm going to walk away. Or depending on the dog, I'm going to bark at you, or I'm going to nip at you, or all sorts of bad behaviors you don't want. So that gives the dog clarity, and that way he understands the questions. And the more questions you ask your dog, the clearer your dog's understanding of the stay becomes, and the better you understand what your dog is capable of, which allows you to put him in different situations where you can actually use the sit and the stay and get the response you want. I will reward my dog sit forever. I will reward many behaviors my dog does forever. Every time you release your dog from a sit, you are rewarding the dog. At this level, I am just building value for the sit, so the food is necessary. At the next level, I am starting to use food as a distraction. Anything that's a reward for your dog is also a distraction and can be used for proofing. So for example, I cue the sit and then I hold a cookie 3 inches in front of their face. Do they move out of their sit to get it? Then the cookie disappears by giving the sit cue. Till they go, what if I don't move? Yes, that's what I'm looking for. So then food becomes a reward and a distraction. It's not about when I can stop rewarding. Rather, it's the proper use of food, rewards, and all other rewards, not elimination. So hopefully this live has given you some tools to use when working with your dog, not just when teaching a sit, but all cues and skills, because this is applicable to everything. You know what? If your sit is that pretty, your down's going to be easy. Your stand's going to be easy. Your dog understands how to be calm before working. Your dog understands not going for stuff because they see it, like the food. So once you have this, it is the stepping stone to everything else. Clarity to the little bits in your dog training will get you further than endlessly drilling exercises or teaching your dog to do a million different things. I remember that first dog, and I'd grab my cookies and we'd do 20 sits and he'd be happy and I'd be happy, but we weren't really progressing. To progress, you have to have some failure. You have to ask your dog questions that he's going to go, I'm not sure. And then let him figure out how to get sure. The missing piece, the secret, is really in the execution. Yeah, without a doubt, all those little bits are going to make a huge difference. If you want flawless behaviors that your dogs listen to, no matter what the distraction is around, like sitting right away in mid-chase of a squirrel, it is important that you're always minding the little bits and constantly thinking to yourself, what am I actually rewarding? Once they learn to sit to a high degree, everything else will become easier because the concepts you teach your dog while training the sit are transferable. Or really, you can do so much more with a perfect sit. If you want to safely walk your dog off leash, there's confidence that comes from knowing you can stop them in their tracks no matter what, just using your sit. And let's face it, if you can use your sit, you can probably use your recall, right? Because you've already taught them to listen, and listening is half or 3/4 of the battle. If your dog sometimes jumps on people, if you say sit, he can't jump, because if his sit is good, he cannot jump. So with some dogs, like I was saying earlier, with Wiki, she's allowed to jump. Her default is jump. That's fine. But if I say sit, she can't jump, right? So I have management tools in place that if we approach people and I'm like, sit, she understands to say sitting. Well, we're working on that. But she gets the concept is what I'll work on. If your dog, all those doing agility, that perfect sit is the key to a start line, and the start line is the key to every course. even something simple like you get back to your car and your dog's all muddy and you want to open the door and get a towel out, but your dog is, you open the door, I jump in because that's what he always does, which is a great behavior. I love it. But if I say sit and I open that door, you should stay there till I can grab the towel out and clean you up. If you're interested in your dog reaching the holy sit level, here's what you can do next. Go watch the first lesson of the course. Like I said, the link is posted in the show notes. And I'm gifting this to anyone who watches my lives and needs it. Go ahead and share this with friends too. The more dogs that get trained with clarity, the happier I'll be. Click the waitlist button on the page. Then just click the waitlist button below the video and you'll be the first to know when I release the course. I am working on it. It's coming soon. Our first round will be very limited and whoever's on that list will get priority. And if you don't want to wait or want a custom training plan dedicated to your goals beyond the perfect set, book yourself a 2-week trial of our dog training programs on our website, www.dogtraining.ca. You'll get a one-on-one consult with me, local or via Zoom, 2 weeks of video review, and a training plan to follow during that time. It's $350 Canadian, which is a steal if you're watching from the US. But just mention you're a live viewer when you sign up and you'll save $50. And sadly for you, I must take a 2-week break. Next week, I'm very excited to be participating in a virtual Tony Robbins event. So I am sad to say there will be no live, but I will be back on November 27th and hopefully you can join me. Okay. Thank you so much, Debbie. I'm so glad you enjoyed it. Okay, guys, have a wonderful weekend. I'll be around for a few minutes if you want to ask any questions. Otherwise, let me know if I can help. Thank you very much. Bye.